Hello, I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady, and welcome to this video which is all about teaching children about time graphs and line graphs. In this video I'm going to explain when you use a line graph or a time graph rather than a bar chart. I'll explain the rules for line graphs and I'll talk about teaching children to interpret line graphs. This video is the second in a pair with the previous video in this series which covered data tables, pictograms and bar charts. So I recommend you watch that one before you watch this one, and here's a link to it now. Right, let's get started. So the first question is, when do you use a line graph rather than a bar chart? So in general for bar charts, if we look back at this one, if you've got categories along the bottom that don't easily fit on a scale, you use a bar chart. So with a line graph, you're going to have a scale up the side still, which could be number of people or number of things, or could be some kind of measure of length or temperature. But you're also going to have a scale along the bottom. And for time graphs, that's always time, but it can be a different unit of measure like length or capacity. So instead of just dealing with one scale, you're going to be dealing with two scales. Then you're going to be plotting pairs of results as points and joining them up with straight lines. And you'll still need titles for each axis and a clear title. Now the plotting of points is a really tricky skill. Children find it quite mind-boggling to be dealing with two scales at the same time and to position those points. So I can't emphasize enough the need to slow down and work on that very, very carefully. It's a great idea to allow time for children just to plot one point and then check each other's work, and then one more point and check each other's work. The earlier you correct faults, the better your children are going to be. It's very easy for them to establish bad habits of not paying attention to what they're doing because it's tricky. And when children find things tricky, quite a few of them tend to really not focus, so that then if they get it wrong, they're not so bothered about it because they didn't really try. And then as we go on to interpreting line graphs, you can bring in all sorts of line graphs. There are plenty for all sorts of situations on the internet. If you just do a search for a type of graph that you think will interest your class and then click on images on your search, it should come up with something. So I looked at global warming and quickly came up with this fabulous line graph. We've got time going across here. The temperature axis is on this side rather than this side, but that's okay. It's got a clear title. This is beautifully labelled, and we've got lots of points. That's got an interesting feature in that it's got 95% confidence intervals on it. You might get a line graph with two lines on. All these things are beyond primary school, but it's great if children can be exposed to them, and it's fine just to say, oh, that's beyond us. We don't quite know what that means yet. Don't worry about it. But even if they've just had that exposure, it's a really powerful thing. It gets them thinking. And questions are typically, how much did the result change by between two dates, if it's a time graph, and most of these line graphs are time graphs. All these graphs have two scales. The scale along the bottom is usually for the independent variable, which is the one that changes at a constant rate or that we deliberately control. And the other scale is for the measured outcome or the result of a calculation, the independent variable and the dependent variable. That vocabulary is beyond primary school, but as a teacher it's helpful if you know that, so that you're thinking about which value goes on which axis. The only type of graph where that doesn't matter is a conversion graph. And we covered conversion graphs in the video on measure conversions, so I'm not going to cover them here now, but they are relevant and it is a great idea to look back at them while you're on this topic. So here's a link to that video now. Now, of course, there are plenty of opportunities to consolidate work on line graphs in science and geography, and you should look for some opportunities to do that during the year and make the links back to maths wherever you can. So your takeaways from this video are that line graphs should have clear titles. It doesn't need to say line graph to show as we had pictogram to show or bar chart to show. This title here, global average temperature 1850 to 2019, is absolutely clear and fine. So you need a detailed title, you need two scales with the numbers evenly spaced, you need titles for each axis, and you need pairs of values plotted as points on the graph and then joined up with straight lines. And your children need to be able to interpret those graphs, so perhaps they could set questions for you from their graphs. That's it. Nice short video today. I hope you found it useful. If you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, please put them in the comments to the video. Hope you love your teaching, and I hope you'll join me again soon for another video. If you want to see the full list of videos with all the links, they're at www.authenticmaths.co.uk/videos. Bye for now.